Okay, so let's go ahead and go over how to make a graph using Google Sheets. So if you're logged in to your Google, you can go over to the apps waffle over here, and you can open up Google Sheets. Okay, then once you open up Google Sheets, you ask for a blank sheet. There you go. And what you're going to do is you're going to put your data right in here. Right. So we're going to start off with. Remember, I mentioned in class that each one of these boxes is called a cell, and in the cell you can put labels or words, and you can put numbers. And when you put numbers, you can use formulas with them. You can do all kinds of mathematical operations with them, combine them, multiply them, all kinds of stuff. Even graph them. That's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to go ahead and put in one box and put trial. You'll notice I'm not starting all the way in the upper left corner. You can. I just like leaving a little space in case I want to insert stuff later on. That's just become a habit that I've used over the years. But I'm going to put one column for trial, one column for actual, and one column for predicted. Okay. As your handout asks you to do, you're going to go ahead and graph both the actual number of percent pennies remaining. These are actual percent pennies remaining. So let's make it percent pennies remaining. These are percent pennies that were still tails, remember. For the trials amount, you start with zero, then go down one, two, however many trials you had, four, five, six, let's say we had seven. But at zero, I'm going to have you go ahead and start off with 100 for both. And then from there, what you actually got. So, you know, first trial, the data table said that that was trial one, and the next one is trial two, right? So, let's say in trial two, I got 52. Trial three, I got 20, 27. Trial four, I got 13. Trial five, I've got what, six. Trial um, the next trial I got, let's say three, and then one, and then one, and then finally zero. Okay. So it took me 8 trials. However many trials it took you to get down to zero or one, you kept getting one. Now, this predicted column here, you can put down how much you expected, which always should be half of what you had before. So if it starts with 100, you'd expect 50. And then if you had 50 for the next trial, um, you'd expect half of that, 25. And then from there, the next one, you can either put 12 and a half, because even though you never really have half a penny, um, you can kind of, uh, you know, we really, the pennies are representing percentages. So there is such thing, even though there's no such thing as half a penny, there is such thing as 12.5%. So if you want to put 12.5, that's fine. Or maybe you might want to round it, round 12.5 to 13. That could work there too. And then same thing with the next one. Uh, if you had 12.5 for the fourth trial, you could have 6.125 for this next one, or 6.25 for this next one. Or you can just kind of round. 6.25 rounds to 6, 3.125 rounds to 3. So that rounds to 2. Half of 2 is 1. I think we can leave that there. Maybe bring it down to 0 if you like. So the key here is that you'll have a column of what you actually got in lab and what you predicted. I want to see if we were that far off. They were kind of close. Okay. So first off, you start by putting together your data table. Okay. We're going to use the data table to go ahead and make your graph. And two ways we can do it. A lot of times there'll be this little icon that says insert chart, or you can go to insert here and you can click on that, and you can go to the chart, so to insert a chart. And a lot of times it'll try to guess what you want, and a lot of times it'll guess correct. I think this is pretty much what we want, but just in case it doesn't come up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove everything here. We're going to start off on its own, right? Blank. Let's say it comes up blank. Sometimes it'll come up blank. It doesn't guess correctly. You double click on it to go ahead and get yourself the chart editor. And on the chart editor, there's two sub menus. There's the setup menu, which kind of sets up what's going to be on the graph. What's your x-axis? What's your y-axis? And then the customize, where you kind of do all the little things. As I mentioned in class, we don't want a line chart here. We want a scatter plot. So click scatter. And then here it'll tell you that you can put your x-axis here. The series is the y-axis. And I think they call it a series because there could be more than one set of data on a y-axis. So they both share the same x-axis data. So let's go ahead and define the x-axis data. As I mentioned to you guys, you should start off with trial 0 instead of 1, like it gives you on the data table with the handout. But if you start with trial 1, it's not the end of the world. So, but I think it works better if you try it with, if you start it with trial 0. But if not, starting with trial 1 is okay. You click on here, add x-axis. Then you go ahead and go to the little selected data range waffle here. This will come up, this dialog box. And what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to highlight all the numbers that you want as your X values and hit OK. Now you've defined that. Now you go down to series and you're going to add series. And same thing, you click on add series, you go down to the waffle, and the select the data range dialog box comes up, and then you're going to highlight all of the numbers in your actual column, right? The actual coin flips you got, the actual number of tails you got in the coin flips, and hit OK, and it'll give you kind of like a little series of blue dots. Okay. Now you'll notice that this doesn't go all the way up to 100 on the y-axis, even though your data does go up to 100. If you've got stuff over here clicked, get rid of this use row 2 as headers or use row whatever, and then you will get a point that goes all the way up to 100. I don't know what this is. Use row 2 as headers. Row 2 is up here. It comes up with all kinds of crazy stuff. I guess just the only thing that you should have checked is use column B as labels. Okay, I guess it wasn't. It looks all weird. So click on that. But you're going to add 2 series. You're not just going to add 1 series of data on the y-axis. You're going to add 2, so you're going to add a second series. So you're going to want to go ahead and add this series right here. Once again, go back to this little waffle, and you're going to get a select data range dialog box, and now you're going to go ahead and highlight all the data in the predicted column. So you'll have points for your predicted amount and points for your actual amount. As you can see, they can kind of be off, but then they start kind of unifying. So now you've got your data. Now, earlier, I guess when we started and it guessed, it actually told us that the actual and predicted, the colors had labels. I don't know how to get that labels by hand. So it's really not that big a deal. For the legend here, to show that the blue is the actual and the red is the predicted, we'd want to put that up there, but I wasn't able to kind of figure out how you can do that manually. It had it up there earlier, but it doesn't have it up there right now. All right, so now you've got 2 sets of dots lined up, right? And that's all you need on the setup menu. Define what the x-axis is right here, this data. And so define what the y-axis is. And you're going to have 2 series, one with this being on the y-axis, and then this one being on the y-axis. Okay. From there, we can go on and go to the Customize menu and do a few things. As I said before, a few things that a good graph has is labeled x-axes and y-axes and a title. So let's start off with the axes first, because the axes will the axes titles will go ahead and help you figure out your chart title. So go over here and go to chart and axis title, and you get this box right here. And then this is the main chart title. Let's start off with that horizontal axis. That's your x-axis. What was on the x-axis but half-lives? Okay. Really, it was trial number. I can put trial, and then I can put half-lives. That's why I want to start off with 0 on the first trial, because it was really 0 half-lives. When you start off, you're at 0 half-lives. After one trial, after one coin flip, you've gone through 1 half-life. So I think that's better. Although if you start off with 1, you go to 2. I guess that'll work. So now we've gone ahead and defined the horizontal axis title. There are no units to this, so you don't have to worry about units. On the vertical axis, we put down percent pennies remaining. Okay, so vertical axis here, you put the text there, and you see it here. So here's your trial, and here's your percent pennies remaining. Now people see what you're graphing. Right? For each trial, how many pennies were remaining at each trial, or how many pennies were remaining at each half-life. And once again, percent pennies remaining is kind of a proxy for percent overall. Now that you've labeled your axes, you can go ahead and do the chart title. Chart title here says actual and predicted. Actual and predicted what? What we want to do when you do a chart title is you want to label the y-axis versus the x-axis. So what you're going to do is, the minimum you should do is go ahead and put percent pennies remaining versus trials. You want to go ahead and embellish it and say graph of, uh, percent pennies remaining versus trials, or make it a little more descriptive. You can. And you can even, at this point in time here, you could even go ahead and format it. You can even center it if you'd like. So over here, you can center percent pennies remaining versus trials. And there you go. Okay. So now that's what a good graph has. A descriptive title that tells you what's going to be graphed. Y-axis and x-axis that tell you what is being graphed on each side. Without that, these are useless. I mean, if you don't know what's being compared, then it's useless. So we don't do graphs just to make it look pretty. We do graphs to show the relationship between one variable and another, the dependent variable and the independent variable. Okay. Now that we're done with that, you're going to go down to series here, and what we're going to do is we're going to add lines. Okay, we're going to add lines. Make sure that this says apply to all series. You can also apply to just one data series at a time, but we're going to do kind of kill two birds with one stone here. And at the bottom of this box right here, the series box, there's a box for trend line. You click on trend line, you're going to get a best straight line that goes through all these points. But we don't necessarily need a straight line because this is not a linear function. It's not a linear relationship. We're going to go to right here to the type, and we're going to go ahead and hit exponential and see how they kind of match much better. These are actually two lines, just so close to each other you can't see the difference. And that's basically what should be it. You want it to be thicker, you can change the line thickness, or you can make it even thinner. But start off with a 2. I'll leave it as a 2. Okay, you can even change the line colors. But whoops, let's not do that. Then you can't see it. Okay, well, you can leave it as it was, or you can go ahead and change that up. Okay, and that's it. All right, there's your graph. You got your points on there, and you'll see that both lines are so close to each other. They really don't. What you did in lab is very close to what you expected, right? And this is the relationship when it comes to half-lives. Every half-life, you drop about half of what you had. Half of the pennies turned into heads, and became the daughter product, right? If they're mimicking a radioactive atoms. Okay, and that should be it. You can then go ahead and download this as a PDF file and include, there's your data table, and include that along with your lab write-up, right? So you'll be turning two things. You'll be turning in the questions from the lab handout, and this can count as your data table. You've redone the data table here, so you can use it, and a graph, and you can go ahead and turn this in as one, and then you can also turn in the other data table. I mean, the other uh, uh, assignment, the other PDF file with the questions at the end of the lab write-up. Okay, so hope that was helpful. And if you've got any questions, go ahead and feel free to ask.